congratulations on your new single. What a beautiful, worshipful song. And I would love to hear the backstory behind it.
Yeah, so during the pandemic, of course, which we're still kind of in, so it's hard to even say that, but during 2020 when everything first started, I remember this feeling that I had, which I think that we're still having sometimes, and I still in my mind go to that place where, I just want to get through this. Like I can't wait to get through this. And honestly, Leah, like God spoke to me so clearly and just said, Jeremy, I want to get through to you during this. And it was this kind of shift of a mindset for me, for him just to go, I want to teach you things during this, and you have to be willing to listen and not just try to get through. All right, if I just get through this, it'll be fine. And it really, really was such a beautiful kind of picture of allowing God to do the deep work in our hearts that we all need to do. And I know that I needed some deep work in my heart. And so, a lot of what was happening during this time too is I think everyone was experiencing just those lies of anxiety and depression and all these different things. And, a lot of people were experiencing fears and worries and doubts. And, I wrote this song just with that context in mind. It starts out saying, I find it's always the lie that is loudest, but I know the one with the power is never the one who is shouting. And I think that understanding of going, listen, the enemy is trying to steal, kill, and destroy. I mean, he's throwing these lies, and the voices that are the loudest a lot of times in our head are those things. And God just saying, I have the power. Like, trust me. And that part of the song says, lean in, through all the thunder, you whisper, even in doubts, you're with me. And it's that whole, like, as we lean into him and we start hearing these words that he speaks to us, which is, I find peace. I realize that, when he speaks, the wind and the waves bow to his will. So nothing is too, big for him to handle. And then, you drown my fear with a love more real when you speak. And so I realize that when you allow God to speak to your heart, what flourishes and what comes out is such life and such just joy and hope and peace, and all those things come out when you let the Lord speak to your heart in whatever circumstance you're in.
How do you feel like God did transform you, or what did you learn about yourself and about your relationship with him during this time?
I learned that I'm a control freak. I think one of the things that you realize is like, oh yeah, I can't control this. And it's one of those, everything was going completely different than what you thought. And so I think I realized, oh man, I'm not trusting the Lord. The scripture that I love, I think it's one of the things that God keeps showing me constantly. It says, we all know the scripture, Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. And it's funny because there's scriptures that I've heard all my life. I read my Bible, I've heard scriptures over and over again. And in certain times in life, they stand out even more because it's very relevant. It's all relevant to what you're going through. And that scripture, it says, trust in the Lord with all of your heart and don't lean on your own understanding, but in all your ways, acknowledge me and I'll direct your paths. And it was just that, it was a daily saying, okay, God, I'm going to trust you. I'm not going to try to understand this because I don't understand it. I don't understand still what's happening. I'm like, okay, God. And he goes, I'll direct you. And I feel like that's what he's done in every aspect through, just my own personal heart, saying, you can trust me with your family. You can trust me with your future. You can trust me with all those things. And I feel like that trust was a thing that it's a theme for my life that he's constantly dealing with, because I think I had such issues when I lost my wife to cancer years ago. I think it's been this kind of ongoing thing of how to continue to every day ask God and say, okay, God, help me to trust you with all my heart. And so it definitely has been that kind of theme for me. And this year was just like a crash course in trust for sure.
I was just talking to a friend. I was like, it does seem like we're going through a second wave. And I'm like, I don't know if mentally I can handle it. I don't know if emotionally I can handle it.
Yeah.
And so what encouragement would you offer to people who are like, man, God, when are we going to come up for air? When is this going to stop?
Yeah, I think my biggest thing I've realized is that God always says, I'm sufficient for all your needs. I'm sufficient in every circumstance. And Paul even, he said many times, I'm content in every circumstance. And I think God has to teach us, and we have to learn to be content. And I know it doesn't make sense when you're in like this kind of chaos, storm, weird, unusual situation we've never experienced in our lifetime. But in the midst of it, God's in control, 100%. And he can stop this at any instant. And for some reason, he's allowing this. And I have to come to grips with that. I think with everything in life, we have to come to grips with the fact that God allows things sometimes and we don't understand. It doesn't make sense. And there's a lot of things that I think I would do differently. And that's why I'm not God. And it would be so terrible. You know what I mean? I'm like, well, God, I think that if this happens or if you do it this way, then it's gonna turn out great. Trust me. And it's like, nah, he sees the big picture. I kind of, I've alluded to this too many times into, when I share, but like God sees the whole picture. So this whole situation that we're going through, he sees the whole thing from the whole thing, from beginning to end, the whole picture. And our face is kind of shoved up against it. So we don't really see what's really happening. We might get tidbits of it or a piece of it here, and a piece of it there, but not truly the full picture. And I think that you just have to trust that he sees the picture and that he actually knows what's best and that he is in control and he loves us. Like he loves us. So it's not like we have to be afraid that like, well, I think God might be angry with us as believers. It's like, no, actually he loves us so much. And so I think that we are continuing to learn to trust and continuing to learn that he's in control and know that he has the whole picture in mind, and knowing that he is sufficient and provides all that we need in the midst of our trials.
Yeah, that's so good. So Jeremy, you have a new album coming out in September.
Yes.
What can your fans expect from this album? I'm so excited about it.
Thank you. Man, I imagine having a whole year and a half, to process through the past 21 years of your life. Because I was forced to, in a good way, take a time of just reflection. And so honestly, I would sit back and God would just speak to me in a lot of different ways. Not, people use that word flippantly. I mean, through his word, through worship, through other, whatever it may be. It's not like I am constantly hearing God's voice. I wish that was the case, and he does do that. But I think for me, it was just in my heart, I kept feeling like things that I was just experiencing and reading and praying, going through these things, God would just speak to my heart. And so with this album, I think it's such a reflection of a depth and of a time of actually processing through all the things that I've experienced and gone through. And even the past 21 years, there's songs that I'm like, whoa, like God just reached down deep in my soul. I feel like, and just pulled out some things that needed to be said. And so I'm excited for people to hear the whole thing, because I think that sometimes people just get a tidbit or a single that they hear. And I'm like, listen to the whole record, because there's a whole theme of things that God speaks when we hear his voice. Anyway.
So this year, your nonprofit, Speaking Louder, has ministered to so many people. Yeah. And it's just such a beautiful organization. Can you share a little bit about what you guys are doing?
Yeah, so we've been able to, over the past how many years, we work in India and Uganda kind of right now. We've got some other places, but those are the ones we put our footprint in. And in India, we've provided probably over 30 homes. We've done wells and leper colonies. We've been feeding people in the midst of all this going on, trying to find shelter for people. In Uganda, we've built a hospital in Entebbe that is able to house people and able to have medical supplies being sent to the facility. So just really trying to be the hands and feet of Christ. But what we did is, the reason why we went there is we did an outreach. So the whole thing with the ministry is we go and we do these outreaches where we'll go into the villages, go to different places, and have this kind of workshops for pastors and leaders in the country, in the city or the country. And then we say, hey, we're going to do an outreach and bring everybody, and it's free for everybody. And we play and share the gospel. And in Uganda, we would have 1,000 people respond to the gospel. In India, we had 4,000 people respond to the gospel. And it's like having those type of events, but then leaving something tangible, like saying we want to leave a mark in this country, and even if it's tiny compared to how big the country is, but in some way. So building a hospital, building homes, going to leper colonies. That's what our heart is, sharing the gospel, but having a tangible resource to provide for those in need. So.
And Jeremy, what challenge do you want to offer to the Western church in the wake of COVID?
Yeah, I think that our creature comforts have been completely obliterated for the good. And I think that we need to, as a society, as a Western culture, realize, for one, how blessed we are, but how overabundance of things that we have, and how much we have kind of bought into, but the American dream. And listen, I know that having things or doing well, that's not what I'm saying at all, because those things aren't bad. I mean, there's many people in the Bible that have flourished and, done great things, and that's not the point. But I think that we've bought into that, and so many people, that's what their drive has been, the American dream, and their drive has been to be as comfortable as possible. I think we've lost the edge of denying ourselves, picking up our cross daily. We've lost that edge. And I don't want to lose that edge. And I know that I've had many moments of losing that edge where I'm like, I feel like I'm just getting super comfortable and where I'm at, and God continues to challenge me. So I think we need to be challenged and not lose our edge, and not forget the whole gospel. And that's, as we follow Jesus, we deny ourselves.
Mm, that's hard. That's a hard challenge because Jesus does say, life is going to be hard. People are going to hate you. But somehow we seem to have forgotten that in the Western church.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think we think that we come to Christ and it's like, everything's going to be great. And he said, hey, actually, John 16:33 says, I say these things to you, you'll have peace in this world. You will face trials of many kinds. So it's that, hey, you're going to have hardships. Like, following me is not going to be easy. I'm letting you know in advance, but take heart, I've overcome the world. And that is the hope that we have. So
ultimately, what is your prayer for this forthcoming album?
I think that I've kind of what I've been sharing about, just pursuing God to the effect where we crave, almost like Psalm 42:1, as a deer pants towards the water, so my soul longeth after thee, O God. And I think that I want people to get that craving, like they realize, oh my goodness, I've been so thirsty and so in need of a deeper walk with Jesus, and that's the craving of their heart, and they start pursuing that. That's my heart's desire.
Yeah, I do think COVID has taught people their need for God. At least I know it's taught me that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's so good.
I know. It's hard though. It's hard. It's a hard
I know,
lesson.
I know. It's funny. I try to be super transparent, honest. Like, listen, I've failed many times, or but I know my heart's desire. I know what the desire of God's heart is for us too. Because it's not like he's not a downer and like, do these things, you're gonna be miserable. It's more like, just trust me. If you start focusing on things of the world, you're gonna be miserable. If you just look to me and the things that I provide, that's where you're gonna find true peace. So
I know you have kids. I have a 1-year-old. I have a 3-year-old. I think I've been pregnant both times I've talked to you when you're.
I know. I think you have. So,
what is your best parenting advice you can give young parents?
oh man, I think one of the biggest things that I've learned and my wife have learned is that we're very transparent in the sense of, like, we admit our faults. So like, if we've gotten overly frustrated with the kids or whatever that may be, or we talked about somebody and like, guys, we shouldn't have talked, that was wrong. Like, I think, or, I think I accused you of something. I apologize. That was just whatever that is. I think the transparency of them seeing that we're human as well. And we don't just kind of sit around like throwing our dirty laundry out. But the point is just being real and being honest with where we're at, and understanding that, hey, we need Jesus every single day, like you need Jesus every single day. And so we've had these conversations rad because they feel like they can share with us their struggles, and they feel like they can share with us things that they go through. We ask them very specifically, say, hey, how's your heart? Not how are you doing? How's your heart? And that's been such a good kind of a stop kind of point for everybody, instead of going, oh yeah, I'm good, because you kind of respond that real quick. But when you say how's your heart, you're like, let me go a little deeper and see what's going on. And so there's many I could tell you. That's one I think has been so key, is transparency with our kids.